Welcome to episode 42 of Broad Street Hustle. I'm your host, Tommy Nanny. As always, we are in the thin season part of the sports world as we concluded with baseball or concluded with football. We're waiting for NBA playoffs. We're waiting for the MLB season to start. So let's figure out what to talk about. So we are going to cover some NBA. It is the post All-Star break. I guess the games are starting tonight after the All-Star break. So we're going to take a look at, specifically the Sixers, but, we can get into some NBA talk in general. Maybe even have a couple of future bets or anything anybody likes out there. Then we'll talk a little Phillies. We have a little segment. One of the hosts will be asking some questions. And then we are going to officially kick off the 2023 Derby Trail. So we have the Rebel Stakes over at Oaklawn Park. We're going to cover it quickly, more so picks, not anything crazy. It's just to kind of wet the beak of everybody here and kick us off for the 2023 Derby Trail. So everybody knows the drill. You know who's here. I got my co-host, Jason Sada.
What's up, Tom?
What's up, Jason? We got Jimmy the Chalk.
Let's keep it thick, not thin.
And we got Christopher Michael Meeker.
What's up, fellas? How you guys doing?
What's up? So let me before we go right into NBA, just quick question. So Jason, are you looking more forward to NBA playoffs or the start of the Phillies?
That's a good question. I actually, and we'll get into it in a little bit, I'm a contrarian, so I kind of love how everybody's now against the Sixers because they just think they're just going to lose in the second round. So I am looking a little forward to the NBA playoffs. Probably looking slightly more forward towards baseball. I think the Phillies are going to be exciting. They have a really good team. Wish Bryce Harper was going to start the season, but he's a quick healer. I think he'll be back late June. So I'm excited for both.
Yeah, I'm probably the same as you. I mean, it's easy to say baseball because the NBA playoffs aren't here yet. But once the NBA playoffs start, I think I'll probably turn. And if Bryce Harper was playing, I feel like I definitely would say the Phillies. I think that takes a little bit of it out. But the addition of Trey Turner, I think, helps with that because I'm excited to kind of see what he has to offer. So probably similar to what you said. How about you, Meeker? What's your thoughts?
Well, baseball is my favorite sport, so I always look forward to baseball season. Walt once said, because he's really just a football guy, Walt once said that baseball is the bridge between two football seasons. But to me, the NBA is a bridge between the football season and the baseball season. But I definitely enjoy the playoffs, and I'm actually pretty excited about the Sixers this year in the playoffs, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. But yeah, I don't know if it matters if Bryce was playing or not. I'm still excited for the Philly season coming off of last season. I'm really interested to see how some of the new guys perform. I'm going to be, getting my season tickets here pretty soon. So,
yeah, what's funny is the baseball season will start and you'll think, all right, now it's baseball season, it's NBA playoffs starting soon. And then the NBA draft's going to take place and the world's going to shut down and everybody's just only going to talk about or NFL draft and everybody's just going to talk about the NFL draft. And kind of forget
which we will have. I'm sure we'll have a show on.
Absolutely, because football does rule. We know that. How about you, Chalky?
I was going to go off the board and select NFL draft as most excited for.
No, you should have said the Triple Crown, Chalky. That's,
well, that comes first, right? The draft. I'll say slightly NBA playoffs only because baseball's so long. You're ready for the new season to start, but even if they get off to a nice start, it's plenty of time to fall apart, or if it's a slow start, plenty of time to get
with
back
baseball,
into it,
the start of baseball, it's not even necessarily like the win-loss record or who they're playing. It's just, it kind of brings in spring and the nice weather. And
there's a lot of things.
It's more of an emotion, I feel like.
Yeah, things that you think about when you think about the start of baseball season. Opening weekend, certainly. And then for me, it'll die down slightly after that and then pick back up. But I'll give a slight edge to NBA.
Yeah, for me, it's just it's not once baseball starts, you just know like there's always a game. There's pretty much a game every night. Phillies are going to play 5-6 days a week. And although the NBA might have 2, 3, 4 games a week, I don't find myself necessarily always watching a Sixers game. But at some point, I have a Phillies game on, whether I'm watching all 9 innings or the start of it or 3 innings. I always can say I've probably seen some part of every Phillies game each season. Nice that you kind of have that for me. All right, well let's jump in. Like I said, we're gonna talk some post All-Star break NBA Sixers in general. Jason, you kind of whet the appetite of everybody saying you're a contrarian. You're looking forward to the Sixers because you're high on them where others may be low. So take us through that.
Yeah, so right now the Sixers are currently 38-19. They are second in the Atlantic Division behind the Celtics, and they are third right now in the conference. They have some pluses and they have a couple of minuses, but I'll go over the pluses. So Sixers right now are 20-10 versus plus over 500 teams. So I thought that was a really interesting stat. Another stat I saw is they've only blown 2 plus 10-point second half leads this year, believe it or not. Which you would, in the past, like that was one of their.
They came close in a couple, I would say, but pulled it out in the end.
Right. They pulled it out. If you look at their offensive defensive ratings, both very good. They're 5th in offense and 6th in defense. So, they're just a solid team all around. I think they added the addition of Melton, I think is really a big trade that, a big addition that they've made. He's stepped right into the starting lineup, and he's actually given them the opportunity to bring Maxey off the bench, which adds some scoring off the bench. I do like the trade for McDaniels. He adds a somewhat of a 3-and-D guy, whereas Thibault was strictly D and no 3 at all. So that strengthened the bench a little bit. It's all going to come down to Embiid. Embiid's got to stay healthy, and Harden too. Harden, I don't want to skip over Harden. Harden's had a really good year. I think a lot of it is he's playing for a contract, but he's in shape and he's playing well. But it all comes down to Embiid, as we know. But and the other thing that's a little bit of a negative, I would say, is if you look at the remaining strength of schedule, you guys know what they rank in their remaining strength of schedule, Sixers?
I'm going to guess 1.
They're 1. They have the toughest remaining schedule in the league. So that's reflected in their odds. They're only I guess they're only 3 games technically behind the Celtics for the division.
Yeah, what's the deal with Giannis? When's he coming back?
He's not as badly hurt as they thought. So he's I think they'll kind of take it easy with him, but he'll be fine. Yeah. But if you look at the division odds, the Sixers are plus 850, which when I first saw it, I was like, they're only 3 games back. Tatum gets hurt or Brown gets hurt for the Celtics, they could catch the Celtics. But then you look at the strength of schedule, and Sixers having the toughest road, to hoe. Those odds are that for a reason. And the Celtics are minus 1,600 to win the division, believe it or not. So Vegas don't make mistakes like that. I originally thought there was value there. I don't, but I'm kind of excited. I'm looking forward to the Sixers in the playoffs. I think I don't think they can beat the Celtics, but I think they can make some noise. And if someone does beat the Celtics, I don't see them not being able to beat anyone else. I think they could beat the Bucks. I just don't think they could beat Boston. So we'll see. Yeah,
some of it's luck, like you said. Maybe somebody does beat the Celtics that isn't supposed to in the playoffs, and now they're not facing the Celtics. So it changes. You can't always just say that they think they're going to lose to the Celtics because you really don't know. Especially if they're 2, they're not going to face them until the championship game. So. The other thing to your point where they're minus 16, one of the reasons why the Sixers are probably whatever the record was against plus 500 teams is because the days they sit Embiid or Harden are against the stinky teams, and their players are fresh and playing for the good teams, right? Well, when you have a tough strength of schedule in the second half, or however many games you don't have the luxury of sitting guys against stinky teams because a lot of the teams you are playing are competitive. So. You might lose those games, or might have to sit them against a better team if you're still looking to kind of, do the whole load management and all that. So that definitely plays a part into probably the minus 1,600, things like that. Chalky, where are you at with the Sixers? How many games you've been going? You lucked out and you didn't have to give away your tickets to the boys club of Philadelphia, but you see them, you're there a lot. So what do you see?
I have been in the arena for a total of 24 game minutes this whole season. For first half of the first game, that was it. But I would say if you
tickets away.
Well, I've been able to resell them, so get some of that money back. But I mean, if you had told me Embiid, Harden, and Maxey were all going to miss double-digit games before the All-Star break, I would have expected their record to be worse than it is. So the fact that they're only a couple games back is a credit, I would say, to the job they're doing as a team, and they've had some really, really big wins. That first win against Brooklyn, I think Brooklyn was pretty much full capacity, and the Sixers were missing their 2 or 3 best guys, and they came in and beat Brooklyn, and they've beaten, like Jason said, some of the best teams. Next 2 games are tough, Memphis and Boston. They were getting kind of whooped by Memphis last I checked, but I think to go along with Jason's point about the strength of schedule, like I said before we started recording, is that I think they have the least games played so far in the Eastern Conference. So not only is their schedule going to be more difficult, they're going to have more back-to-backs and cramming more games into more days than probably any other team in the conference at this point. So load management, however they want to look at that, is going to have to play into some of these choices, and they could end up having to lose some games because there's not as much time between the games as they were having in the first half. But it comes down to Embiid. If Embiid is healthy in the playoffs, I'll give him a shot against anybody. Boston is a better team, and Boston would be the rightful favorite in a series. But if somehow they pull out that first seed, I mean, then you're probably avoiding both Boston and Milwaukee in the first 2 rounds. Let them slug it out with each other. I think it's like Jason said, it's unlikely. And actually, Milwaukee being their record with only having Middleton for 17 games, I mean, like, they don't have top to bottom the depth the Sixers have. So the fact that they've been able to win as many games as they have, I think, we'll see if they can hang on with Giannis. But Melton has been key, and Harden is not the MVP Harden, but he's played well at times. He's got a little bit, the injuries last year did obviously seem to have an effect. He's a little healthier, and he's playing a little better, and he can beat some guys off the dribble. And it's still going to be prove it. When it comes playoff time, there's going to be those doubts of the last couple of years. It's the same coach, and they still have the same mental lapses. Jason mentioned the second half leads that they have or haven't blown, but they've blown a couple, like, almost 20-point leads in the first half and lost a couple games. So they lack mental focus, and sometimes they seem like they don't have a plan. I don't know if you can turn that on in the playoffs, but they have a little more time in the regular season to try to work it out.
Yeah, you guys both alluded to what probably the most important, and if you go back to the early exits that they've had outside of Toronto, I guess, with back then, but you guys can remind me. So it's always been, if Embiid didn't get, break his face, if Embiid didn't have a bad knee, if Embiid, it was always something either in the first round he got hurt or at the end of the season. And, you never know because he's always had those injuries, how much it affected him. And in some of the games, he played like he was, kind of injured. So history says that he, good chance he's going to get hurt, but doesn't mean he will. So that is going to be a huge factor. And you guys both said it, similar to the Eagles, where we said, the Eagles have a great roster, but we don't know what Hurts is going to be going into the season. Well, he proved who he could be, and you saw where they went. So similar to the Sixers and Embiid. Meeker, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Jason said it right. I mean, it's all about Embiid and whether he's healthy going into the playoffs. I wouldn't have a problem with them sitting him a little more often towards the end of the season and kind of conceding the division if it means that he's going to be fresh for the playoffs. One thing I worry about, defensively is that, 3 of their starters, Embiid, Harris, Harden, are kind of older. I mean, they're not, they're not fast, right? Not at this point in their careers. None of them are really that fast. But I worry a little bit about them defensively when they go up against good teams, especially teams with good guard play like Boston. So that's always been the Sixers' Achilles heel, is being able to guard on the perimeter. Boston's a good perimeter shooting team. from their depth point of view, you alluded to a minute ago, Chalky, that they're deeper this year maybe than they were last year. But the one thing I don't think they really added was like a spark off the bench, like a guy like a Curry or Ilyasovich. So I don't. And that was really important in the year that they had Ilyasovich, is because I think that those guys provided a big spark off the bench and could spell some of the other players and keep them fresh. Don't really think they made a trade to do that this year. They traded away defense, like Jason said, with Thibault. And he was kind of, I guess you could say, like a key against Boston in previous series from a defensive point of view. So I'm not sure if they're losing something there. But look, Brooklyn gave us a gift. They're basically nothing to worry about at this point. So to me, it's really up to the three top teams. I don't know if there's anybody other than Milwaukee and Boston that can really contend in the East. I mean, you want to throw Miami in the mix, maybe? That's about it.
I'm going to have something to say about Brooklyn soon that's going to differ from your thoughts, but we'll get to that.
Well, look, I mean, they made, obviously they traded 2 all-stars. I can't think that they can rebound from that and really contend in a 7-game series.
They're going to be tough to play against. They're a very good defensive team. They are very good defensively, and they have some guys that could score. I think they're going to be I would not want to play the Brooklyn Nets in the playoffs.
I'd rather, if it came down to the series prior to a final series, or maybe the series before that. Because I'm thinking it's still going to be, us and the Bucks, playing in the semifinals. But in the first round or second round, whatever it ends up being, I'd rather play Brooklyn than Miami, a team like Miami, if that's what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. I would differ on that. I think Brooklyn.
Have you changed your point of view? Because I know, Jason, like in the beginning of the season, we talked when we did some NBA preview. Are you still on the fence with Doc? Or you think he's done a good job this year?
I'm over the fence with Doc. I don't like him. I wish he was gone. I don't think he's a good coach. He's won a championship. You have to say. So he's won a championship. Now, he had a very good team when he won a championship, but he won a championship.
Yeah. Brian Burke won a Super Bowl.
3 Hall of Fame players. He had 3 Hall of Fame players.
Listen, I'm just saying.
He won
a championship. I don't like him. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. But
do you think he's had a good year coaching? Given the injuries that they've had and where they're sitting right now, and they're 17-5 in their last 2 months.
I think if he is considered whatever he was on that list of one of the best coaches, blah, 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 he's doing the job that you would expect a coach like that to do. I think the only reason you say he had a good year is because our expectations of him have been garbage for the last, years or so. So we're surprised, like, Jason's stat. Wow, we've only blown 2 games when we had a 10-point lead. We shouldn't be blowing any games with a 10-point lead in the second half. And it happens. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is I do think our expectations have been lowered with Doc to where we're like pleasantly surprised that he's doing better than he has in previous years. But we'll see if that translates to the playoffs or not. So, I do think he's not having a bad year at all. But again, you never said about Phil Jackson or whatever. Oh, he's having a great. You just expected them to always coach to the high level. So that's kind of. And Chalky looked like you wanted to say something.
I don't think Doc has underperformed. I'm not giving him like super amount of credit to the success that the team has had with the injuries. His rotations and some of his other decisions still remain questionable. They still can't figure out who they will regularly want to play at backup center. I don't think Dwayne Dedman is going to be the answer to what's ailed them. And Doc doesn't control the roster, but some of the lineups he put out there, it's just kind of like, Yeah,
whatever. See, but none of that matters because the regular season is made, especially in the NBA anyway. The regular season is for figuring out your rotations, what's going to work. Who are the 7 guys I'm going to play in the playoffs? When I give Embiid his spell in the first, after the first 2 breaks or whatever, who am I bringing in? So a lot of that trial and error is what he's trying to figure out. The ultimate decision of Doc that you'll say about Doc is going to be in the playoffs when those rotations still stink. Then you're going to say, well, he still hasn't figured it out. but we don't know yet. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think
think you're giving him too much credit. I saw too much DeAndre Jordan last year to have faith that he's just trying to work something out. He has his philosophies, and it's whatever. I mean, Maxey coming off the bench, I think it's a gutsy move, especially with the way he played last year and the popularity. The injury kind of gave him a reason to do it, but it's worked out, and I think that's the right move because, you know, he becomes that spark off the bench, right? He's that instant offense, hopefully, coming up. He's not, you know, his shooting's down a little bit from last year, but he's still got that energy. He's not afraid to take a shot. So, okay, that took a lot of guts to put Melton in the starting lineup, I think, over him. And then we'll see who that seventh or eighth guy ends up being in rotation. Is it McDaniels? Is it one of these other guys? So, but I mean, Doc has his philosophies and who he likes to put in situations. I'm not giving him the benefit of the doubt of he's just going to work something out until it works out.
The thing that's alarming to me with the Sixers is they never seem to be able to get these buyouts to come and play with them. Like, all right, Love, maybe Miami was giving him more money, which at this point in his career, why should he care about money? I mean, I guess they do. The type of money different. I know, but I mean, come on. Is it a couple $1 million is going to really?
I mean, we don't. I mean, you know, we could sit here and say, but I do. I think they
maybe.
Well, I think he's getting more playing time in Miami. He would be a guy off the bench here. He might start for them. They got some injuries right now. Like they're not starting Love. He would be a second group rotational player. And if he didn't want to do that in Cleveland, I mean, sure, you have a better chance of winning a championship in Philly than in Cleveland. But, you know, if he wants to play, Miami's a better opportunity for him.
But even like guys like Beverly and like they don't get any of them. Like
last year, they don't. Yeah. They haven't. No,
they don't get any of the buyouts.
Why is that?
The biggest buyout they got was Bellucci. I don't even know what the hell his name was. Bellinari.
Bellinari and Ilyasova, like
got Hill. Didn't they get Hill last year?
No, that was a trade. That wasn't even a buyout. You know, I mean, Dedmon's a buyout, but I don't. I mean, the thing is, you don't. Other than Love, you don't even hear him connected to these guys, right? So it's is it Amori or Rivers' philosophy? It's like, I don't want Pat Bev. I mean, they got a bunch of guards. If they're going to roll with Harden, Melton, Milton, and Maxey, then okay, where's Beverly fit in? Really, I mean, they could use another 3 player, but how many of those guys are going to be available, right? So Love, I would have taken because he can rebound. Like the mental lapses with those comebacks, like sometimes they just don't rebound on defense. Love can still do that. He can't guard anybody, but he can sit under the basket and get a rebound, which some of these guys just doesn't do.
Been their best rebounder if they got him. He would immediately become their best
probably other than Embiid, probably, yeah.
I even think he's better to rebound than Embiid. Embiid likes to dance around,
but
outside.
I mean, look, these guys, they want to chase championships, and they're not necessarily considering Philly the best place for that. And then like Miami and LA are better weather. You know, Miami has no tax. It's that's all stuff they think about.
City wise. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, who the hell wants to go? I'm sorry.
I don't know who was talking about it the other day, but
who's that?
The NBA
player Turner wanted to go to Philly.
He had 300 million reasons.
Yeah, a lot of reasons to come here. But who was it? It was Shea Gilgeous-Alexander or something like that. I think they were talking to him about the All-Star game the other night and how atrocious of a game that was. And, someone had asked him, well, what can you do to make the All-Star game better? And he said, well, money talks. Like, this guy just signed the contract for like $100-something million. How much money you need money to go play in an All-Star game? Like, that's the mentality of the NBA player, though. The NBA player, and I'm not saying it's just the NBA, it's really all of sports, but the NBA player is still about the money and less about the competition and winning. I really believe that. These guys.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish, Maker. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. These guys, like, they make all the money in the world, and like, what difference would it make if you made another $250,000 to play in an All-Star game and actually play some sort of defense and play like a normal game instead of just hoisting up threes, from half court for 6 minutes? It was atrocious.
Somebody on Twitter shared a clip of I guess there's an interview that Kobe did a couple years ago before he died, and like Kobe's a different type of player, but his era, 80s, 90s, even into the early 2000s, like, he said he looks at the All-Star game as like fans should look at it as the best pickup game that you could possibly have.
Yeah.
And it's like, you want to be the top dog, you want to put the best team together. It's not about, yeah, you want to show off, but throwing up. Okay, it's cool that Dame Lillard can hit half court shots, but like, when nobody's trying to play defense, like you go back and watch some of those 80s and like early 90s like All-Star games, and they took it. Michael Jordan wasn't going around there to mess around. Like, he wanted to win and he wanted to beat you. He's like, we're the best against the best of the other conference. And it's just a different mentality now, I think, with the players. I don't know that money makes it any better, but it's more of an exhibition than a competition, I guess, if you want to compare it that way. Like, nobody feels like they're proving anything by winning the All-Star game anymore, whereas before, like, those players, it was like they were going to beat you, whether it was in the gym with nobody watching or with the best players in the world on their side. And I don't know that that's translated to the modern day players.
You guys are in the run the football type camp for the NFL as well, it sounds like, since you guys are stuck in the 80s and 90s. I mean, come on.
It wasn't that long ago.
Ask Jordan, and well, Kobe, you can't, but about load management. I mean, it's a different era. They like, come on. These guys don't care. You're talking 40 years ago with some of this stuff now. Like,
hey, listen.
I'll be the first to tell you, if I was in an All-Star game,
years
I
ago.
ain't playing defense. I ain't hustling if I'm in an All-Star game.
They need to just do away with all of them. I mean,
need
baseball's
to
the
get
only
rid of
good
it,
one,
right,
but that's
exactly.
because you really.
I turned the NFL game, whatever, and they were throwing water balloons.
Yeah.
They were having a water balloon toss. I mean,
Years ago.
come on.
Probably.
So,
Yeah, I mean, not that I care. I'm not talking about the All-Star game, like in.
No,
I'm just talking about the athlete and what they think about.
it's a different
And
era.
if you're not going and playing with
time.
if you're not going and playing with your boys, like, a lot of these guys do, try and team up together, like the LeBron situation that we've had for the last, 10 years, then it seems like, it's all about who's going to pay me more. It doesn't really matter to them, if they're going to win a championship or not. Not every player is like that. I mean, I don't think Embiid's like that, for instance, like if to talk about someone close to home. But a lot of these players are like that. I mean, it's all they care about is the money and getting paid, Sad, but it's just the way they think.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about the MVP odds? So Joker is still minus 250 and Embiid's plus 500. I mean, could we see another year, a third consecutive year where the Joker gets the MVP? I mean, the odds are saying yes, right?
Like you said, he's minus 250. It looks like it. I still think that there are a lot of people that are of the opinion that Embiid came in second 2 years in a row, and maybe they don't want to give Jokic 3 in a row, and it's not like Embiid fell off, like he's second again in odds. I had plus 450. Maybe that changed since I wrote these down, but
yeah, I think I just saw DraftKings was plus 5.
Yeah, so maybe it's the homer in me, but I would take a shot on that. The other guy I had is Tatum. He's plus 1,500.
Yeah, he was high.
Come on,
he's even higher than that now because I think
maybe that changed too.
Doncic was plus 16, and he was fourth.
Doncic I would shy away from just because of Irving. They got Kyrie there now.
No, I'm saying, but he was fourth, and he was 16 because Giannis was set plus 700.
I would obviously never in a million years put anything on Jokic at this point. I think I have to go check my account. I think I actually bet him when he was the fourth choice. I was like, hey, what is he doing being the fourth choice? Like, this was like a month or two ago, and I was like, that's outrageous. But not now, forget it. But I would throw something on Embiid and Tatum.
Anything for you guys?
I was just going to say that, I mean, Jokic is a great player. Don't get me wrong. I watched that game against the Sixers, and I thought Embiid had a better game. But, just the way that Denver runs their offense, not to say that he's not a great player, but, he's able to average triple doubles because they basically run their offense right through him. The Sixers don't quite run their offense through Embiid, like not the same way. So the stats are a little bit different, in my
Yeah, but
opinion.
they cutting. Like Embiid can never do it, Jokic. I think
No,
if
maybe
you're
he
asking
can,
me, I think
but
Embiid's the better
isn't that
player.
why his stats are where they are? The guy's got what, 10 point something assists a game as a center. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
as
the
Embiid can
far
never
Jason's
do that.
but the Jason's point too. There's not a, he's able to have the offense run through him and still put up those numbers. I mean,
Right.
keep in
Yeah.
mind
Oh, no. I mean,
Embiid could probably do
awesome.
it for a short period of time, but could he do it consistently every night for an entire season?
I think because of defense, I think Embiid's the better player. I think he's clearly a better defensive player
Right.
than Jokic. So
Right. That was going to be my point. You took it out of you took the words out of my mouth. Offensively, your style runs through him. The stats are going to be like, oh, this guy averages a triple double like 3 years in a row. Embiid's never going to, get 10 assists, but defensively, without him on the team, the Sixers would be awful. We're talking about valuable. Not to say be awful, but valuable. I would go Embiid, but
Look,
you know,
it comes down to what Jason said. It's Joker wins the MVP unless they don't want to give it to him for a third consecutive year, and they Embiid finished second twice, and they want to give it to Embiid or somebody else, right? So chalky.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say the same thing I said about Patrick Mahomes when we were talking MVPs in the NFL and Hurts was a favorite. If you think Embiid has a chance to win, I would bet him now because if he ends up having a chance, his odds aren't going to drift much higher because he's got to, the work has to be done or somebody has to get hurt and those odds are going to drop. I just think if Embiid's going to finish third in the East and, Jokic got it the last 2 years, and then now Denver ends up with the best record in the West or the best record in the league this year, they're going to give it to him again. Unless, if Boston goes on a tear and wins 18 of the next 20 and Tatum really balls out, yes, he can make a late charge. So, 18-1 or whatever Tatum's at, I wouldn't argue with that. I wouldn't bet Jokic at what he's at right now, but they've already shown if they're willing to give it to him twice, especially after the season. Embiid had a better season last year, and I don't think Jokic. It should have been a lot closer last year than it ended up being, and they still gave it to Jokic. So if you're actually going to try to do an analysis, I just can't see Embiid getting it this year unless Jokic gets hurt or something drastically changes. So I bet Embiid now if you think he has a chance to win.
Missed a decent amount of games last year. Maybe that hurt his chances. Jokic is pretty durable. I mean, he doesn't miss games.
No, he's durable. That's why I think Giannis is third choice. He's probably going to miss too many games to win. So I don't think that's a good bet. And Jokic. I mean, Jokic is last 72 games, 74 games. So most of the season, not every game, but he's playing more than Embiid for the most part. And he's played in all 51 games this year so far. Or he started all 51 games, but he might have missed a couple in between. I think he did miss 2 or 3 games, but he's certainly healthier. And how much does Embiid and the antics he does and goofing off? I mean, think about who's voting for this. Does that factor into their minds? Jokic is a no-nonsense kind of guy, except for his brother is threatening to kill people or whatever. So who knows? But I think, he doesn't come with the controversy or whatever you want to call it that surrounds Embiid sometimes. So that might be a positive in voters' minds. I don't know. But I think Embiid hasn't done anything this year that's going to get him the MVP unless they just decide, we're tired of voting for Jokic. And I don't think that's going to happen.
All right. Let's wrap this up. I know, Jason, you said you had some thoughts around some of the non-Sixers and some wagers, maybe future wagers?
Yeah, I had 2 more futures and then one on a team. I thought for the most improved player, I'm a huge marketing fan. You guys have always heard that from me, but he's the favorite at plus 130. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is plus 135. He's averaging over 30 points a game. I think he's going to win it. I think there's actually value on plus 135 on him. And then 6-man, again, this might be me being a homer. Brogdon's the favorite at minus 160. Maxey at plus 400. Doc Rivers has...
Are they calling him a 6-man? I mean, is he deemed a 6-man now?
You just have to play more than half of the games off the bench.
Okay.
So if he does, then he qualifies. So Doc Rivers has had 6 men of the year before. Maxey is a guy who's going to score 20 points a game, plus 400. I think it's worth a shot. And then my team bet is the team that Meeker mentioned that I told him I would have something. The Brooklyn Nets. I They are their over other wins is 46.5 plus 100. Right now they're currently 34-24. They just have to go 13-11. I like them. I think they're a tough team to play against. I think they're going to win some games. Just on the defensive end. So that's a bet for me. Plus 100 on them winning over 46.5 games.
Okay.
Well,
Anything?
the main reason Brooklyn might win that many games now is they announced today that Ben Simmons is no longer in the rotation, so he might not play another game this year. So
that hurts their defense, but that's
does it really? He plays like 10 minutes a game at most when his knee's not bothering him. Like,
I don't know if I said it on this podcast. I've definitely said it to other people. That guy will be out of the league maybe next year. He's done.
Who's out of their respective leagues first, him or Carson Wentz? It's a neck and neck race right now.
Oh, it's Simmons, because Wentz can hang around as a
backup
for years and years and years. I mean,
yeah, he'll be a backup quarterback. He's the one. He's going to go play in Australia.
Yeah, and I mean he can stay around if he wants to, because there'll be teams that want him for they don't have anything else going on. But I don't think he wants to.
Wow.
Nah.
Yeah.
As far as
What
the game.
I don't know that Wentz wants to be a perennial backup, but
he's not going to quit that.
I mean, I think he'll
have more opportunities than Simmons potentially. If
He'll start. He'll get a chance to start somewhere like he always does for a bad team, and he'll get hurt.
The thing with Simmons though is it's mental. It's not mental for Wentz. Wentz just isn't that good.
Oh, I disagree.
It's mental. Oh, come on.
I'm not saying it's as much mental for Wentz, but a lot of that with Wentz turned out to be mental, I think.
Physically, he's like.
I mean, physically he's beat up now, but his the stuff between drafting Hurts, he didn't like it, and then all of a sudden, like I don't want to get off into the thing, but like his 2019 season was a really, really good year, and then he came in 2020 and just completely looked awful. And that's not just completely, he broke down.
And that was the year he finished with a concussion, right?
He got the concussion in the playoffs, right? So that probably was part of it. And then I think mentally he didn't like the idea of them drafting a guy in the second round because he gets hurt too much. And you heard all the other stuff about the locker room and how he wasn't a great teammate in the run up to the Super Bowl, supposedly.
But then he was the guy for the Colts, and he was horrific.
Was it mental on the Colts? Was it mental on Washington?
Yeah.
I think so. Once he started, you turn the ball over once or twice, and then he just falls apart.
He stinks. I mean,
but I think if he had a better mental makeup, he could be a better player. But they're both head cases.
Let's move on.
I think he just stinks, and Simmons is the old Bronx towel, wasted talent.
Yeah,
worst thing in the world.
Doesn't try to.
You look at highlights of him, and he only played the 1 year at LSU. He's hitting 15-footers. He's hitting shots, jump shots, and
he doesn't even dunk anymore. He's afraid to dunk when he's under the hoop. He did it again 2 weeks ago or a week ago.
He's afraid to get fouled because he can't hit.
He doesn't want contact. He doesn't want to get fouled.
Well, he just don't want to. He knows he's going to go to the line and hit 50% from the line, and people are going to be screaming at him.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
All right, anything else before we wrap up the NBA guys? Meeker and Chalky?
What's the odds for the West for winning the West for Memphis?
That is plus 750.
Okay, I would say that's not a bad bet. The
West
I think is not like stacked. That there's a shot.
I think the West is wide open, but Denver's got a pretty nice lead on them.
And you also remember Phoenix, all the other odds, because Phoenix is probably kind of under their odds.
I would love
drastically went down, so you're going to get better odds on everybody else.
I would love to book bets on Phoenix. I just don't buy it. I don't buy that they're going to stay healthy. I don't buy that they're deep enough.
They aren't deep enough. They definitely compromised their depth with that trade, but
I'm not buying.
The West 5 games. That's a lot right now to overcome. I mean,
I think Denver wins. I think Denver's going
to
win.
It's hard. I mean,
that's not to finish first though. That's just.
I mean, just to win the West.
That's a good point. You guys are right.
To win the conference.
You guys are right.
Like right now, like Dallas and Memphis are at the same. I mean, I was on Memphis in the preseason. I'm not getting off that, especially if Dallas with Kyrie could be a much better team than they were before. But I don't think they're as likely as Memphis to win the conference right now. So, yeah, I mean, and I don't buy the Clippers at 5-1. So
I bet Dallas. I don't. I it still remains to be seen if Irving and Doncic could mesh, but I have that future bet out there.
All right. Well, let's move to the Phillies. They're starting. They had spring training has broke. They had their first full squad practice. I think yesterday maybe. I seen Painter throwing some batting practice. I seen Schwarber hit a bomb off of him. But I also I saw it on Twitter. But I also saw Painter throwing 100 on every pitch. And where are we at with the Phillies? So I know Meeker, you had some questions. We could jump right into it, or we can give a synopsis. I still wanted to talk quickly before Meeker jumps to his questions. Where are we at with the lineup, guys? So I know we talked about it when Trey Turner first came. What do we think? What would you kind of do, and what do you think is going to happen? Obviously, there's two lineups. There's the now, and then there's when Bryce is back type of lineup. And don't have to spend a lot of time. Just real quick, run through some of your thoughts around that, and then we'll turn it over to Meeker. Jason, you can kick it off. What do you think?
Well, I did see something, and I only saw the top two. I did see that Turner is going to lead off and Schwarber's going to hit second.
And that's the start of the season without Harper and all that good stuff.
Right. I didn't see the rest of the lineup. My thoughts are they're probably going to come back with JT third, and then I would hit Castellanos fourth because I think he's going to have a bounce back year. They're probably going to hit Hoskins fourth. And then, if it's Hoskins and Castellanos, it'll be fifth, and then Bohm, and then, so on and so forth. Who am I forgetting? Marsh and Stott, and, whoever. But
so you think they'll go? What's their righty-lefty situation? So they would go righty. I guess 3, 4, 5 would be right-handed, righty.
You have to, unless you're going to put Hall. If Hall's DH, and maybe you split up Hall and hit him somewhere in there. But right now, without Harper, I think they're a little right-handed dominant in the lineup. Mm-hmm. So you really only have Schwarber. And,
I know. Well, I guess he's a righty, but I saw Sosa was going to give a little bit of a shot at center field as well.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, they're a little right-handed dominant right now without Harper. So, the bottom of the order could go in any different way.
What about moving Stott into one of the earlier positions because he's the type of hitter that fouls a lot of balls off, sees a lot of pitches, blah blah blah.
I like that idea. I mean, I don't want to interrupt you, Jay, but I like that idea because of what you just said, and I might put him second and move Schwarber down to fourth with JT hitting third. But, I don't think they want to do that because I think they just want to give Schwarber as many times to the plate as possible, right? So
I think the analytics has just taken over as far as the type of lineup that you're traditionally looking at, where your leadoff hitter is going to get on base, your second hitter is going to see a lot of pitches, your third and fourth are going to clean up the bases. I think the analytics of 1 and 2 getting more bats than so on and so on takes over.
I would put Stott ninth though, because then he becomes the second leadoff hitter. Right? Yeah, and I would put Marsh eighth.
Then that's 2 left-handers in a row at the bottom of the lineup.
Wow, I mean at that point, what do you?
I think the bottom of the lineup isn't because let them bring a lefty in to face Stott and Marsh. Is that really going to make that much of a difference if they're bringing a righty in to face Stott and Marsh? I mean, it's not going to matter for Marsh.
Certain situations it might, but
Yeah. I mean, who's going to get the bulk of the DH at bats with Harper out?
I guess Hall is a lefty.
Yeah, Hall is a lefty.
Yeah, you also get JT to play first, and then move for Hoskins to DH. I think you'll see on Sundays or Saturdays,
or JT DHs,
or he just flat DHs, right?
I think it'll be a rolling. There's not going to be one set guy. I think for sure, especially before Harper gets back. So they could play around with that, and if somebody gets hot, move them into the lineup at a position. Maybe, I don't know, but Hall, like you said, and could get some at bats there, I suppose. And then in days they don't want JT catching, they could put Stubbs as behind the plate and DH JT.
Yeah, I think you'll see that a lot. As much as we love Harper and Harper's so great, that really hurt them last year where you couldn't rest JT. Like JT caught a lot of innings.
I
'cause
mean,
you
yeah,
didn't
and it
wanna
hurt
lose
them
his bat.
defensively, where Schwarber and Castellanos always had to play, and they
Right.
never could DH. Definitely, I mean, couldn't lose as bad, of course, but yeah, I mean, when you signed Schwarber, Castellanos, you didn't have the idea that Harper can only DH. That was we weren't going to DH Harper at all. That was never an option.
No.
So yeah,
No, you probably wouldn't have paid Castellanos what you did because you would have figured he would have been doing a lot of that.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it showed in the World Series. I mean, sure, folks remember some of the highlights, but I mean, he got one hit in the last 5 games of the series. Like that home run in the extra innings in the first game was like everything he had left in him at the plate to get it like that over and to win that game. He just, he was run down. So giving him more of a break this year, I think, is going to be very important. So that way, if you can make a deep run, he's maybe got a little more gas left in the tank than he had to do last year.
All right. That's it, Meeker. I don't want to ask too many more because you may have the question.
I mean,
so
a couple of those were kind of on the list here, but one of the things that we were just talking to about the outfield, right? So, do we have faith in the outfield defense, or is this going to be a spot they try and make a trade, especially if Harper can't play defense when he comes back? But I'm hearing he will, that he should be able to play defense before the end of the year. Can we live with this outfield defense?
I mean, we did last year. Made it to the World Series.
Yeah, I think
we did. Luckily,
I think the Marsh trade, if Marsh is going to be a regular player, had defense in mind. I mean, he's not a stellar hitter, but you didn't trade for a 40 home run guy that can't play defense and just figure you slug it out. So unless you're going to move Marsh again, I don't know that there's a outfielder defensive minded trade for a regular player that you're going to make. So I think you got to hope Harper can play defense.
Just to play, Marsh is the opposite of a stellar hitter. He's below stellar. I mean,
that's what I said. Yes, I was trying to be a little generous, but
strictly a defensive.
Well, I have faith that the hitting coach with a year in spring training with their hitting coach, he'll be a better hitter. But
he had a couple of okay hitting years with the Angels, so I'm not dead set on him not.
We'll see. He's still young.
He's young.
He hasn't.
Yeah.
I think hit any kind of prime yet.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Sosa, we know how good of a defensive player he is. I think late in games, you're going to have Sosa out there. You're going to move Marsh over to, get one of those guys who can't play off the field, Schwarber or Castellanos. So you're going to see that a lot. Who was the guy from Pittsburgh they signed? Harris? Was it Josh
Harrison? He plays like all over the field. Yeah, he's like
he's going to,
anywhere.
He's listed as a second baseman, but he's not strictly.
Right. He's going to be a guy they're going to, like Meeker said, throw around out there. He's not a bad player. So, I think Sosa, that was a really big move they made getting Sosa last year. Like, we were at your party, Meeker, when that trade went through, and we were just like, whatever. They still had Didi Gregorius at the time and all. And it turns out, he's just you could just put him in so many different positions, and he's a great defensive player.
Yeah, he came up with some big hits too.
And he came up with some big hits. So I like Sosa.
All right, let's. What player do you think is the biggest key or needs to step up the most for the Eagles for the Phillies' success this year?
Jalen Hurts.
I'm talking about you.
I'll take the easy one. So I mean, it's easy to say because this guy was so bad last year, but it was Castellanos, right? I mean, if he does what you signed him to do, your team improved. I mean, you just basically signed another free agent this year because he was beyond terrible last year. And the other guys did so well, Schwarbers and the Harpers. It's like, how much more can they step up than they already have? They really can't. So it's probably Castellanos for me, unless you want to throw one of those pitchers that you're not sure about. But I'll let the boys, take one of those maybe. But yeah, Castellanos is the low hanging fruit, so I'll take that one.
I'm going to say Alec Boehm. I'm going to say I think that if he graduates from let's just say the first half of the season he was not good. The second half of the season he stepped up in both defensively and offensively. If he can continue on that track, I've heard he's added 15 pounds. Is that right? He's added 15 pounds in the offseason, so he bulked up a little bit. You can turn those whatever 15 home runs into 25 home runs and play good defense at third. I think that really helps with Harper not being here for the first half of the year.
I mean, he's the one guy that has the chance to make the biggest leap, right? I mean, he is on the younger side of that crew. So he has a chance to really take that next step forward for sure.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Bohm. Castellanos would be mine, but I don't want to pick the same guy as Tommy. I'll go with Ranger Suarez. You know what you're going to get from Wheeler. You know what you're going to get from Nola. Taijuan Walker's a good addition. He's probably a solid number 4. But if Ranger steps up and becomes like a, really good third.
We thought he was going to do it last year, step up and make.
He was my guy last year when we asked this question. Ranger.
Yeah, if he steps up and he becomes what he could be, now you're talking a tough lineup, a tough staff to go against in the playoffs. So I'll go with Ranger.
I'll go with Jason's favorite player.
Reese?
I'll say Hoskins. If Hoskins plays a little bit better defense and can cut down on some of the mistakes at the plate, that makes them a much better team, and you can hit them third, fourth without having to worry about needing backup behind it. Is it realistic as some of the other guys? Probably not. But I mean, if you're talking about who's going to give you the best bang for your buck, I'll say Hoskins.
If I was able to punch my father in the stomach and money come out his mouth, I could retire tomorrow. There's just things in life that are.
Well, I didn't say what's the most likely. I said what would be the biggest help if Hoskins hit better and played better in the field. That would help him out than anybody else.
He's not capable. I mean, hitting maybe. Right? He's not capable to play better in the field. He's only going to get worse.
If I knew what the lottery numbers are going to be for tomorrow
then I'll say Stott. I'll say Stott as the 9 hitter, getting on base a lot for third. But I'm a Mick Abel fan myself, but we'll see.
Can the Phillies continue to go bullpen by committee, or do we have to name a real closer?
I think they're, I think that's a very underrated point of what they did with that bullpen in the offseason. That is a really good bullpen now, regardless of whether or not. Look, Dominguez is going to be the closer. Let's face it. It's going to be Dominguez, right? He's got the most electric stuff. But now you have guys where you have the guy from Soto that they got from Detroit. He's got electric stuff. He throws, I think he's the second hardest thrower, or maybe third because of Hader, but second hardest lefty thrower other than Alvarado, who you also have, right? And then you brought in Kimbrel. You brought in Matt Strahm, who's a really good left-handed reliever.
Yeah,
right?
Strahm I'm excited about.
They got a really good bullpen now. So
I think I'm excited to see Brogdon.
And I'm excited for Brogdon. I really like Brogdon. Reminds me of Ryan Matson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited. I think
they got this Marte kid too that apparently is lighting it up in the spring already.
Who is that?
Junior Marte.
Junior
Marte. He's they say he's going to make the roster. I mean, he's been pretty impressive. Thompson's been impressed with him, so we'll see. Go ahead, Chalky. You were going to say something.
Like the most handsome coach in the league.
I was going to say. I mean, like he's. I wasn't that familiar with him until I started reading. He's 28, so he's not a young kid, but junior.
Nice kid to me.
Yeah, look, bullpen. You always find those guys, right? That have 1 year all of a sudden came out of nowhere and are competing for best reliever in the league.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say the days of the stud closer on every team, I think, are kind of gone. So I think you can get away with the bullpen by committee if you can rely on these guys. And I'll say, you want to talk about guys that have a mental makeup. I mean, closers are some of the craziest guys in the world. Like, they could close at the 9th, but if you bring them in the 8th, like they fall off the edge of the earth and they just can't pitch. So if you can mentally keep everybody balanced, I think you have a lot of options that you can go. Somebody's going to get hurt. They always do. I don't think you need to name one, but I think you have a little flexibility. You want to rely on somebody, but they have a lot of options to what Jason said, and they did a good job building this bullpen out, I think.
Yeah, bullpen's always tricky. Like I said, there's guys that are going to come up nowhere. Then there's guys like Alvarado who, maybe takes a step back this year and goes back to what he was. You just don't know. So But I would think the Phillies probably want a designated closer, right? I don't think they prefer to do by committee if they don't have to. But
I
once
would
the
think.
playoffs
No, I
start,
think you're right that they prefer.
and like
but-
Jason said, I don't see why Dominguez isn't going to be given that chance, and I honestly don't see why Dominguez won't be able to do it. Yeah, either. But
I think
Yeah,
any
so-
manager wants that because then he has to manage through it, and you're going to get second guessed.
I
a
mean,
lot if you
don't
move.
they always say baseball players especially, like, we like to know our roles. We
Yeah.
perform
Yeah.
better when we know our roles. Just like the batting order, we like to know where we're hitting. We don't like the blah blah blah. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I legitimately think you have 5 inning games now with that bullpen. They're so deep now. Like you just get 5 innings from your starter. You got a murderer's row in
and
that
that's
bullpen.
before the trade deadline,
Yeah, right.
because now they're in a
exactly.
position where they may only need to add one big arm in the bullpen at the trade line
Yeah.
deadline to take them over the top. So
I mean, I think Dominguez, the biggest concern is going to be his health. He's missed time the last couple of years with different shoulder, elbow type things. So can he hold up for the year? But the good thing is you have options to come behind him if he has to go on the DL, whereas other years you didn't really have a lot. But I think his health is the biggest concern.
What team do you fear more, Atlanta or the Mets?
always the Atlanta, never will be the Mets. Never will be the Mets. Then
Yeah.
DeGrom started the first day he showed up to training camp. He had soreness, and they already shut him down for like 2 days or something like that immediately. So
Well, he's
we'll
on the
see.
Rangers now, but I mean that.
Or not?
that-
Oh, what? Oh, yeah. You're right. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but it still
Did that really happen?
Yes.
Yeah, but they said
really
like if
happened.
it was, yeah. They said if it was the regular season, he wouldn't have missed time. But because it was the first day of spring training, they don't want to take any chances. But
Wow.
still fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree, Atlanta. I mean, look, Verlander and Scherzer are both good, but they're
Verlander, that's what I was thinking.
they're much near the end of the road, or I mean, they're 40. So Atlanta this year until the Mets sign Machado and Ohtani before next year. But
Look, how
Yeah.
often in baseball does signing all these old guys work out as much as having the young
I
oh
just
no,
can't-
yeah, it doesn't.
I just can't believe like you got 2 40-year-old guys that look at Scherzer last year. Like he was garbage in the playoffs, right? And now you got Verlander, who was not very good for Houston in the playoffs. So these guys gotta go 6 months and then be ready to pitch in the playoffs at 40 years old.
Scherzer's had
thanks.
dead arms at the end of the year, the last 2 seasons now in the playoffs. So
Nah, yeah, definitely Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you guys. I think Atlanta's a better team overall. I mean they lost Swanson. I guess that's their biggest loss in the lineup. But you get a full year out of Acuna. They have, I think, a deeper staff than the Mets, and of course they're younger, so you have that. But yeah, I mean the pedigree, of the Mets, excuse me, pedigree of the Braves, I would trust more than buying a bunch of players, and trying to put it pieced together to make it work. Atlanta builds from their farm system, so they always got someone else coming right behind you. So when you have injuries, they've always been able to make up for their injuries with some of these kids they bring up from the minor leagues. I don't really see that with the Mets. So they're just out there signing free agents and hoping for the best. So yeah, Atlanta's the team I fear, definitely fear more.
But the only thing is their owner is just insane. Like he'll spend
Oh, yeah.
have a $500 million payroll.
What is
and
it?
at
Who
some
sent
point-
it to me yesterday? Wasn't it you, Tom, who sent it? Like if you took the Mets payroll and the bottom 6 payrolls in Major League Baseball wouldn't equal the Mets payroll. The
Wasn't
6
me,
bottom
but
teams in.
I believe
I
that.
thought it was you. That's incredible. And 2 of the teams that were on that list were Cleveland and Tampa. Both made the playoffs last year. So it isn't always about like the money you spend. And I say this, but we also have done kind of the same thing here in Philly. We've Schwarber and Castellanos and now Walker. So but I don't know. I feel like we still have some of the pieces from our farm system like in place, like the Bohms and the Stotts, and I guess Hoskins of the world and Knowles of the world that really are the crux of the team. and I have one more. The shift, does it hurt the Phil's staff more, or does it help the Phil's lineup more?
I mean, for me, I don't know until I see how it changes.
I think it's going to help the lineup because now Harper and Schwarber are just guys that hit softball.
Yeah, but there's
to the right
so
side
many
of the infield.
guys in the league that it hurt that it could wash itself as well.
I think they're two of the biggest main guys in the league, though, that it's going to help. I mean, they're just dead pull hitters from the left-hand side.
Yeah, I mean, they have usually the shift has historically hurt lefties, right, more than it's probably hurt right-handers. So, I mean, they do have two of the better left-handed hitters.
I don't know if it was one of you guys who sent it, but I guess the plan now is a lot of teams are going to take the left fielder and put him like as a softball outfielder and move the third baseman back and ask the third baseman to be more athletic, right? If there's a shallow fly ball or something like that, the third baseman is going to be responsible.
So you can move your outfield to whatever you want as long as they don't cross over, I guess.
There's a certain line that they can't. I think that's going to be the new shift.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember. It seemed like every time the Phillies tried to play a shift on defense, it didn't work. So I can't see it being more of a benefit for them defensively than offensively because I don't feel like they were able to play the shift on defense and have it be in their favor.
Yeah, I think it helps the lineup more than it hurts than the pitchers.
I just think you're going to be able to say that with a lot of teams, though. That's the only thing. Yeah.
Nola's really not a ground ball pitcher, number one. So you got one space in the rotation. It doesn't throw a lot of ground balls. Wheeler is a swing and miss guy too. I mean, so they think they led the league, I think, in strikeouts last year. Their starting staff. So
but Ranger's a ground ball pitcher, right?
He is a little bit. Yeah, Ranger is a little bit. Like that's the guy you have to worry a little bit about. But their top two are swing and miss guys, or fly ball pitchers. So I don't think it's going to hurt them that much, but it's definitely going to help Harper and Schwarber, like you said, the left-handers in the lineup. It's going to help a lot. So I see that being a plus for the Phils, actually.
How about the large bases? Is that going to also help the Phillies?
I
don't know. People are making something out of that. I don't think it matters that much, but
apparently it's because they want to prevent guys getting
injuries,
the Utley.
Yeah, I think it's more for
blowing somebody up on the base.
Well, don't they have like this safety bag now or something like they have in softball? I thought they were looking at that like softball. You had two bags, one that the first baseman stood on for the out, and then you could. Base. No, okay. I thought that was talk too, but yeah.
It might have been like thrown around
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the average foot size in the Phillies is, but if it's a bigger foot size, then that extra couple inches might be beneficial. But
maybe Rhys Hoskins will get some speed because the bases are bigger, chalky for
he can stretch a little further out from
yeah
to catch those short hops.
Maybe they'll get him a bigger glove as well, and he can catch when the ball's thrown to him.
You gotta get the one Homer had in the softball.
You have the glove with the maybe the Velcro in it that the little kids have. Joe Shoe.
Is there a way a first baseman can cheat? With putting something in their glove to make sure it sticks in there.
Yeah, stick them.
Yeah, Featherstone.
So they're gonna have to start checking Reese's glove instead of starting to check.
Well, I think they could, but if they go to the mound and see the ball in the pitcher's hand with the stick on it, he's going to get thrown out no matter whether it's in his glove or not.
The problem is on ground balls, the ball doesn't even hit his glove. He's about 4 feet from. He lays it.
I can't believe I gotta watch that again. So
yeah. So I got one last one. What's the over under this year on text from Jason saying that Rhys Hoskins is the worst first baseman he's ever seen in the history of baseball.
40 years.
How many games do you plan on watching?
Yeah.
122.
On what game this year will the first text be sent to us? Will that be
game one?
1.5. 1.5 is the over under.
Yeah. 100%.
Wait, does multiple in one game count? Like if he blows three in one game, does that count as three separate ones or one instance?
Comes through, it counts as
we might be talking 200. We might be talking 200.
It might be more than games played.
If you take the under, you better hope he DHs a lot.
We could place an over under in that.
All right. Anything else, Meeker? Was that all
That's it.
5 for you? Oh, whatever we actually ran through. All right. Well, it's just a little bit of baseball talk to kind of fill the gap and get ready for this season. We will have our preview show at some point, I guess. I don't think we've talked about it in the production meetings, but
Mid-March.
Mid-March. Okay. So you got a couple weeks for that. We'll have give out some picks and kind of lay out the division, some futures. So more to come on that. Like I said, we're going to run through the Rebel Stakes to kick off our Kentucky Derby Triple Crown trail. Meeker, feel free to stay on. It'll be quick. But basically, episode 42 of Broad Street Hustle was tonight. Thanks for listening. Let's move on to our final segment here, boys, if you're ready. All right. So, like I said, for us, we're officially kicking off the Derby Trail with the Rebel Stakes, mile 16th, Oaklawn Park in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Got a pretty good field of Brad Cox runners, pretty much, and we got a Bob Baffert or Tim Yakatine runner, whoever you want to call it. We have a Steve Asmussen runner, and that's probably about it for people that actually have a chance to win the race. So, Jason, I'll kick it over to you first. Any overall thoughts and who you picking to win?
I mean, for me, it seems like it's a 2-horse race to win, and it's one of the Cox horses that are going to win. I'm going to go with Verifying on the rail. Giroux's sticking with him. He runs a nice tactical. He's got tactical speed. Really, the only race he didn't run well in, he had a bad break in the juvenile. Giroux's sticking with him. I'm going to give Verifying a shot. I mean, obviously, Giant Mischief could win, and if I'm doing any multis, I'm going to use both of them. But if I have to just pick one horse, I'm going to pick Verifying. I'm going to try to get one of the Asmussens underneath him in an exacta. Underneath one of the Coxes. Like, I'll probably bet both of them on top and then put these two underneath and try to beat the other Cox for second. So the 3, Red Route 1, I'm going to try to get him on the board somewhere, and also the 4, Gun Pilot. They look like good Derby Trail type horses, probably a notch below the Cox horses, but I think you'll get some value in those horses.
How about you, Chalky?
Yeah, I mean, Verifying would be the of the 2 Cox horses, or however many there are, would be the one I would go for. Half the Midnight Bisou, so there's a ton of pedigree there. Obviously, I'm going to take a little bit of a shot on top, I guess, if you're considered more in line. I'll go with Gun Pilot for Asmussen. 4th start, hasn't run as fast with some of the numbers as some of the other horses, and he's lost to a couple of them at Oaklawn already, or lost to Verifying. If he runs like his last race, he'll be a little bit off the pace, and there are probably 3 or 4 horses that might go with Verifying on the front, and Gun Pilot shouldn't be too far back. At 8-1, I'll try him over any of the 2 favorites from Cox. But I would say if you're going to play Verifying on top, you could play Gun Pilot and maybe a bomb third or something else. But I would go for Gun Pilot.
All right, and so this is a horse I've been waiting to run again. I've been high on this horse after watching the replays. This is a portion of the show where if I had any technical ability, I would bring up a replay, show it on the YouTube channel, and you can watch what I'm talking about. But unfortunately, I just do not have that ability. So I would recommend you go and watch Giant Mischief's Remington Park replay. He totally missed the break, was left in the gate, dead last. Now, it was Remington, but he was dead last. I mean, made a ginormous middle move that was just eye-catching, that you kind of want to see in Derby-type horses with those particular moves, and came up just a little bit short. You can question the horses you ran against, of course, and the winner, but, I've been waiting for that horse. The fact that IRAD is brought in, so yes, Giroux did stay on Verifying. So who knows? That may mean some, may not. We never know. But the fact that Cox didn't just go with one of the local jockeys at Oaklawn or somebody that was already in to ride somebody else, he went with IRAD. Now, I did look through the card. I didn't see IRAD really on any big mounts, so I'm assuming that this is the reason why he's going to miss, Gulfstream Park, which is where he's going to win the jockey, the jockey crown for the champions meet. So, that tells a lot to me. Right now, he's the second choice of 5-2. I actually have a feeling he will go off as the favorite because, again, as you watch the replay, it's just eye catch. The move he made was eye catching. The other thing is verifying is out of Justify. And, I was sitting in the Breeders' Cup in Keeneland. I was talking to one of the more prominent owners, of some of the horses. And I actually brought up a point to him based on looking at some of the telegraphs that Justifies over a mile don't perform as well as you would think. They're actually under 10% when you're stretching them past the mile. So although Jimmy said, or Chalky said, he's at half the midnight, Bizu, who has shown distance and, of course, I think the sire there is gonna hamper him for the distance. And this isn't like the classic type distance just yet, but I think, it gives Giant Mischief a little bit of the edge when they're going around this distance. So I'm going to go with Giant Mischief. I'm going to actually leave verifying out of the exacta for that reason. I've seen so many races. Cox can easily run 1-2. He does a lot. He does it in big races. But I'm going to leave him out. Now, I would probably lean towards, like Jason said, with the Asmussens. I got to comb through it a little bit more. Maybe one of those other bombs somewhere along the line. I haven't really found who. If it's funny, if Baffert's name was training Reincarnate, we'd probably be picking him to win because he doesn't really lose races when he ships into Arkansas too much. But the fact that Yakatine takes over gives us a little pause. I can easily see that horse finishing second. I'll probably play a nice exacta there, depending on kind of what it pays. So I won't know until I see. But then I would use Gun Pilot and the other one, Jason, Red Route 1. Outside of that, it's hard to find somebody, maybe a confidence gain, somebody like that, where DeSormo a lot of times finds himself in the number with some big horses. But in the big races, and that's probably the only one I would look at. But definitely Giant Mischief, and depending on odds, it would be a win bet for myself. So 5-2 for sure, a win bet. But we'll see. I have a feeling might go off as a favorite, but we'll have to tune in and watch. Anything else before we close this out? No, and that was just to get a little touch of the Derby Trail. We're going to bring you Derby talk pretty much every week at this point. We'll have a few maybe that we do not, but pretty much every week. Episode 42, Broad Street Hustle. Catch us on all your major platforms. Don't forget to go to YouTube and search for us, and you can see all the beautiful faces that you've been listening to for 42. Well, this will be the 42nd show. Thanks and have a great night.